You know that highly specific fantasy? I think basically everyone has around 2 p.m. on a Tuesday.
Oh, the one where you just stare blankly at your monitor?
Yeah, but then you just stand up, walk right out the door, drive straight to the airport, and I don't know, book a one-way ticket to a cabin in the Swiss Alps.
Right. Or a beach where the Wi-Fi signal is just fundamentally non-existent.
Exactly. The ultimate escape hatch. I mean, we are all sort of convinced that peace is a geographic location. Like,
Well,
if I just change the scenery, the noise in my head will finally stop.
it's a really universal instinct, the whole, geographical cure idea.
Right, this idea that if you can just get away from the emails, the neighbors, the constant news cycle, then you'll finally be okay. But today, we are doing a deep dive into a text that argues this is basically a rookie mistake.
The very expensive rookie mistake.
Truly, we're looking at the source material from Meditations, specifically Book 4 by Marcus Aurelius, and our mission today is to explore his core argument, which is that the most luxurious, completely bulletproof retreat isn't in the Alps at all.
No, it's right between your ears.
Exactly. And the goal of this deep dive is to figure out how to cultivate what he calls the inward mistress, basically the ruling faculty of your mind, so it stays completely tranquil no matter what kind of chaos is happening outside.
And just to set the stage here, we really need to remember this isn't just some trendy self-help slogan. Marcus Aurelius was the Roman emperor.
The most powerful guy on the planet at the time?
Right, he was dealing with actual plagues, massive wars on the borders, political betrayals. When this guy talks about stress, he isn't talking about being stuck in traffic. He's talking about carrying the weight of the entire known world.
That context is just huge. I mean, this isn't a monk sitting quietly in a Zen garden. This is a guy writing in a military command tent on the front lines. So let's get into this survival mechanism of his. He uses this term that caught my eye right away, the inward mistress.
It does sound a little strange to modern ears, for sure.
Yeah, it sounds almost like a Victorian novel or something.
Well, in the original Greek, the concept refers to the hegemonikon, the ruling faculty. You can think of it as the CEO of your mind. It's a part of you that actually decides how to react to external things.
And his main goal in book 4 is training the CEO to be hyper adaptable.
Exactly.
He uses this metaphor of fire, which I just love. I am so hyped about this imagery. He says to imagine a small, kind of weak candle flame. If you throw a huge log on it, representing a massive obstacle, what happens?
It just suffocates. The external pressure is way too much for the internal heat, and it goes out.
But if you have a roaring bonfire, what he calls a great fire, and you throw that exact same log into it,
It consumes it.
yeah,
The fire actually burns hotter and higher precisely because of the obstacle.
yes. The text says, and this is the central thesis of the book, really, yea, by those very things it is made greater and greater.
It's a brilliant mental shift because it's easy to nod along to that, but living it is incredibly radical. He's saying the obstacle isn't just a barrier to get through.
It's fuel.
Precisely. It's about converting friction into forward motion. The text mentions that the mind should act with exception and reservation.
It means what, practically?
It means you have a goal, but you aren't completely addicted to the outcome. If the road is blocked, you don't stand there screaming at the rocks. You just say, okay, the path is now over the rocks. The blockage itself becomes the new path.
I love that. So tying that back to our initial vacation idea, Marcus seems pretty brutal toward people who constantly need to run away to the countryside or the seaside to find peace. He calls it simplicity in the highest degree, which I'm guessing is an odd compliment.
Definitely not. He's basically calling them simpletons. He writes that a man cannot retire anywhere better than into his own soul.
And this is a massive, but you can't just retreat into your head if your head is an absolute mess.
Right. If your internal world is chaotic and full of unexamined anxieties, retreating there is just locking yourself in a torture chamber.
Yeah, if I close my eyes right now to retreat, I'm not finding perfect tranquility. I'm finding a massive to-do list and like that one really embarrassing thing I said at a party 5 years ago.
Exactly. Marcus defines tranquility very specifically in this text. It's not just sitting in silence or having a blank mind. He defines it as a decent, orderly disposition. You have to actually tidy up the room before you can relax in it.
So how do we do the tidying? The source talks about using brief and fundamental precepts. Is that like having a daily affirmation?
Sort of, but with much more philosophical weight. It's about keeping heavy-duty cognitive weapons right at hand. He suggests you need short, punchy truths that act almost like a solvent. You dip your mind into them, wash off the annoyance of the day, and then return to the world feeling well pleased.
And the expert text highlights two specific thoughts he wants us to keep in our back pocket, right?
Yes. The first one is the absolute separation of external events from internal opinion. He says things do not touch the soul.
Okay, walk me through that. Because if someone walks up and punches me in the arm, that definitely touches me.
Physically, yes, your arm is touched. But the soul, the ruling faculty, remains untouched. Marcus argues that objects, other people, and external events stand entirely outside of us. They are static. They don't have little hooks that reach in and grab your anxiety.
So where does the trouble come from?
The trouble comes entirely from your internal opinion about the event.
So a massive traffic jam isn't inherently annoying. My opinion that traffic is bad and I absolutely shouldn't be stuck here is what's actually causing the annoyance.
You nailed it. The traffic is just metal boxes on asphalt. It's no intent. It's not actively trying to ruin your Tuesday. By removing the judgment that this is terrible, you remove the suffering.
Wow. Okay, and what's the second mental tool?
The second is the realization that everything changes. The universe is essentially a giant transformation machine. He wants you to constantly remember that whatever you are stressing about, whether it's good or bad, is already in the process of becoming something else. He says the world is mere change and life is opinion.
Which honestly sounds a bit destabilizing. If everything is just shifting sand, what are we supposed to hold on to?
That perfectly sets up his next major argument. We might be individuals who are constantly changing, but we are part of a massive structure that doesn't change, the cosmopolis.
The world city.
Exactly.
This part of the text really surprised me because usually when people talk about Stoicism, it feels very solitary, very I am a rock, I am an island kind of vibes. But Book 4 gets incredibly social and interconnected.
It's the logical bridge of his whole philosophy. He builds this chain of reason. If you and I both have the capacity for understanding, then we share reason. If we share reason, meaning the ability to decide right from wrong, then we share a common law.
And if we share a law, we are fellow citizens.
Right. So the world isn't just a random collection of competing countries or tribes. It's a single state, a single commonwealth.
A single organism, almost. The text has this biological analogy that I thought was fascinating. It says, just as the earthy part of us comes from the earth and the moist part comes from water, our intelligence has to come from a common mind or source. We're literally just pieces of the exact same whole.
Which perfectly explains why he gets so intense about people who are antisocial or excessively selfish. He calls someone who separates themselves from others an aposteme.
Yeah, an aposteme, an abscess or a tumor on the world.
It's very harsh language.
That's harsh.
But think about the logic he's operating under. If we are all functionally cells in one body, then getting furious at your neighbor or withdrawing from society out of discontent is like a hand trying to sever itself from the arm. He says you become a fugitive, fleeing from social reason.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate here, though. It's really easy to say we are all one body in a quiet room. But what about the actual wrongdoer? What about the person who intentionally lies to you? Or the politician who is blatantly corrupt? Are we supposed to just smile and hug it out because we're both citizens of the cosmopolis?
That is the ultimate test, and Marcus clearly struggles with this too. You can feel him wrestling with human nature in the text, but he consistently lands on a specific cognitive reframe. They offend against their will.
Meaning they don't mean to be evil. That feels incredibly generous. Maybe too generous.
It stems from the Socratic idea that no one does evil knowingly. They do it out of deep ignorance. They genuinely think lying or stealing will make them happy or safe. They're just mathematically mistaken about what is good. Marcus says we should look at them the way we look at someone who is visually impaired. You don't get blindingly angry at a blind man for accidentally stepping on your foot.
You feel pity.
Exactly.
So when someone aggressively cuts me off in traffic, they aren't launching a personal attack on my dignity. They're just mistaken about the ultimate value of getting to the red light 3 seconds faster.
That's the Stoic view. And he adds a really powerful perspective check to help you actually let go of that anger. He says, look back at history. Look at all the people who fiercely hated each other, who plotted revenge, who raised massive armies to destroy their rivals.
And now they are reduced to ashes.
Gone, stretched out in their graves. He's essentially saying, you and this person you hate are both going to be dead very soon. Is this really how you want to spend your tiny remaining ration of time?
That perfectly brings us to the river of time imagery. This theme is just relentless in Book 4. He doesn't just say life is short, he describes time as a violent flood.
A sweeping torrent. As soon as any single thing appears, it's immediately swept away and replaced by something else. He suggests this mental exercise that we call the Vespasian exercise. Vespasian was a Roman emperor about a century before Marcus Aurelius, and Marcus tells himself to close his eyes and watch that entire era like a movie.
Okay, so if I'm doing this, I'm picturing ancient Rome. People are getting married, raising their kids, getting sick, dying, fighting wars, throwing lavish feasts.
They're plotting for promotions, flattering the emperor, suspecting their neighbors, worrying about the spring harvest. It all feels completely real and permanent to them.
And the twist is,
The twist is, he cuts the feed and says, and is not that their age quite over and ended. It's all gone. Not just the physical people, but the memory of the people. It is total erasure. He then points out the exact same thing applies to the times of Trajan, another past emperor.
and the application for us is that we are in the times of right now, and the exact same flood is sweeping us away.
Time is the great leveler. Realize that your modern anxieties are just as fleeting as the anxieties of a Roman farmer 2,000 years ago.
Which leads right into his takedown of fame, because Marcus Aurelius was arguably the most famous man alive. He had marble statues of himself in every major city, but he completely dismisses the desire for reputation as pure vanity.
He uses what's called the point argument. It sounds remarkably like Carl Sagan's pale blue dot concept.
Oh, I see the connection.
Marcus points out that the entire Earth is just a mere point in space, and the inhabited part of that point is incredibly tiny. And the people within that tiny corner who might actually praise you, they are few, they are fickle, and most importantly, they are mortal.
He calls it the forgetfulness, right?
Yes, even if you achieve legendary status and are remembered by the next generation, that generation is going to die, and the one that succeeds them will die. Memory is eventually totally extinct, so seeking fame is chasing a ghost.
This could get really dark and nihilistic very quickly, like nothing matters, we're all going to die, nobody will remember us, so why bother? But then he pivots to this absolutely beautiful image of the emerald. I really think this is the standout metaphor of the book.
It acts as the perfect antidote to that nihilism. He poses a simple question. Doth the emerald become worse in itself, or more vile if it be not commended?
So if nobody likes the picture of the emerald online, does it stop being beautiful?
Exactly. Does a flower or a piece of gold or ivory lose its intrinsic quality if no one stands around praising it? No. Its beauty and value are intrinsic. It is simply true to its own nature.
That is such a heavy, necessary thought for the modern attention economy. We constantly outsource our self-worth to the audience. Marcus is telling you that the quality is in the thing itself. The applause adds literally nothing.
And the silence subtracts nothing. If you do good work and live a good life, you are like the emerald. You do not need external validation to make your worth real.
Let's shift to some of the heavier concepts in the source material. We've covered daily annoyances and the illusion of fame. But what about actual tragedy? What about death and profound loss?
Marcus returns to his ultimate formula, removing opinion. The text says, "Let opinion be taken away, and no man will think himself wronged."
But isn't that just psychological denial? If I lose my career or my home, I have objectively been wronged, or at least harmed.
Marcus would challenge the definition of harm. He would ask, has your core character been hurt? Did this event force you to become dishonest or unjust or cruel?
No, I mean, I can still choose to be a decent person even if I lose my job.
And, strictly according to the Stoic framework, you have not been truly harmed. The core of the man hasn't been made worse, so the life hasn't been hurt. And he applies this rigorous logic directly to death itself.
How does he reframe death?
Not as a tragedy, but as a secret of nature's wisdom. It's just a natural process of generation and resolution. Elements come together to form you, and eventually those elements resolve back into the earth.
There's this part about a fig tree that stuck out to me.
Yes, he says complaining about the world acting the way it naturally acts, including death and decay, is like demanding a fig tree not produce sap, or being shocked that a baby cries. It is simply nature doing what nature does. He even mocks the professionals of his day, who took themselves far too seriously regarding death.
The physicians and the astrologer.
Right, the doctors who dramatically furrowed their brows at their dying patients, and the astrologers who self-importantly foretold the deaths of others. Where are they now? They are all dead themselves.
He has this brutal quote, "Yesterday, vile snivel, tomorrow an embalmed carcass or ashes." It is such a stark way to take the human ego down a peg.
It's abrasive, but he softens it beautifully at the end of that section with the metaphor of the olive. It's how he suggests we should approach the end of life.
Right, like a ripe olive falling from the branch.
Exactly. It doesn't fight gravity. It falls naturally, as he puts it, praising the earth that bore it and the tree that grew it.
Gratitude and gravity, that is a profound way to look at it. But to achieve that level of peace at the end, you need stability while you're living. And the text provides a visualization for that, the promontory. I want you, the listener, to really hold on to this image for whatever you're facing this week.
The visualization is of a massive rocky promontory sticking out into the sea. The waves constantly crash and beat against it, but the rock stands absolutely firm. And eventually, it actually quiets the waters boiling around it.
That second half is what makes it so powerful. You aren't just enduring the waves. By standing firm, you are actively quieting the chaos around you. It's the ultimate definition of leadership.
And to become that rock, he pairs the visualization with a mental flip. We call it the unlucky lucky reversal. When a misfortune happens, what is the default human reaction?
We say, why me? This is awful. I am so unlucky.
Right. The text says, oh, wretched I, that this happened to me. But Marcus instructs us to completely invert that. You replace it with, happy I, that though this happened, I continue without grief.
Okay, break the logic of that down. How am I supposed to be happy that, say, my car transmission just exploded?
You aren't happy about the transmission. You are happy about your own internal resilience. His argument is that the transmission breaking could happen to literally anyone, but not everyone could bear that frustration without flying into a rage or falling into despair. Therefore, the fact that you can endure it without grief is a far greater good than the broken part is an evil.
So the real victory isn't avoiding the bad luck. The victory is the strength of your posture after the bad luck hits.
Precisely. In fact, he says, anyone who is shocked or offended by what happens in the world is a stranger in the world. If you are surprised that bad people do bad things or that machines break, you are completely ignorant of how nature works.
It's like visiting London and being furiously offended that it's raining. You're a tourist. You should have brought a coat.
Exactly. And your philosophy is the coat.
We're heading into the final segment here, which covers the practical rules for living. We have all this high-level theory, but how do we execute it?
The most tactical advice in Book 4 is his rule on action and idleness. He says you should do only what is necessary and social.
So, cut the fat.
Radical trimming. He argues that the vast majority of what we say and do is entirely unnecessary. If you actively cut out the non-essential, you instantly create leisure and peace. But the real insight is that you have to cut off unnecessary thoughts as well.
Because unnecessary thoughts inevitably bleed into unnecessary actions.
Exactly. If you stop the anxious, spinning thoughts, you prevent the wasted physical energy. He references the wisdom of a figure named Agathos, quoting, not to look about, but to run on straight in the line.
Run on straight. Just stop constantly checking your competitor's lane. Stop doom scrolling to see what everyone else is outraged about today. Just run your own race.
And part of running that race effectively is being willing to change your mind. He says being rectified by reason is not a sign of weakness.
Which goes against our modern instincts. Usually if someone proves us wrong, we feel like we lost the argument.
The Marcus frames it as a free action done by the self. If someone shows you a better, truer way, and you adopt it, you haven't been defeated. You've actively chosen to align with truth. It's a sign of a strong ruling faculty.
It's a mental software update. You shouldn't be angry that your system is getting upgraded.
That's a great way to phrase it. And finally, we have to mention this incredibly vivid quote he pulls from Epictetus.
Oh, right. The carcass quote.
Yes. A wretched soul appointed to carry a carcass up and down.
It is just such a wild, visceral image. We are these profound, rational sparks of the universe, but we're forced to drag around this decaying biological suit that constantly needs to be fed and washed and rested.
It beautifully emphasizes the mind-body duality he's working with. The body is just the temporary vehicle. The inward mistress is the driver. Never confuse the two.
All right, let's summarize the code we've unpacked today. We have the inner citadel, the necessity of retreating inward to an ordered mind. We have the fire that actively consumes obstacles. We have the cosmopolis, the realization that we are all part of one world city. And we have the promontory, standing firm and breaking the waves of misfortune.
It's a comprehensive system for building mental armor. Remove opinion, accept the flow of nature, and stand like the rock.
To close out this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final, deeply provocative thought from the text. It's what I call the morning after question.
This is an incredible perspective shifter. Marcus poses a hypothetical. He asks you to imagine that a god suddenly appeared and told you, you are going to die tomorrow, or you are going to die the day after tomorrow.
Okay, so a difference of 24 hours.
Right. And he points out that unless you were exceptionally petty or fearful, you wouldn't actually care about the difference between dying tomorrow versus the day after. One extra day doesn't change the substance of your existence.
That makes sense. If the cliff is right there, an extra foot doesn't really matter.
So Marcus takes that logic and scales it up. He asks, if you wouldn't care about a one-day difference, why do you care so deeply about the difference between dying tomorrow and dying 30 years from now?
Wow.
When compared to the immense, unfathomable gulf of eternity, 30 years is mathematically no different than one day. It is a total blink. The duration of your life is irrelevant. Only the quality of your character right now matters.
That is simultaneously terrifying and strangely liberating. It circles right back to the river of time. The future is an illusion. The past is ashes. So the only property you actually own is this present moment.
Exactly. So build that inner citadel today, because tomorrow is just an opinion.
That is a perfect place to end. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Book 4. Go out there and be a promontory.
Run on straight.
We will see you on the next deep dive.